Hey guys, welcome to BP the Bible Perspective. A black receptionist at a Confederate museum files a discrimination complaint. What did she expect? Now before we get into it, please like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I came across a fascinating article about a black receptionist who worked at, of all things, a state-funded Confederate museum, files a racial discrimination suit against the Confederate museum. And as I said, what did she expect? And this is fascinating on several levels. One, that this was a state-funded museum. Secondly, they had a black receptionist, and she worked there for 12 years. So I want to read the article and kind of just, I don't know, just kind of wonder at it, try to unpack it, but mostly wonder at it. Let's bring it up. That's the museum. It's actually the old presidential house of Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederation. And so, as I said, this is a state-funded museum. In other words, it's paid by the state. Of course, this black worker, unbelievable, files a race complaint. I want to read the article, kind of really get into this because, again, it's fascinating to me. Written by Kim Chandler of the Associated Press. It says, Montgomery, Alabama. Alabama welcomes visitors at the first White House of the Confederacy, a historical home next to the state capitol where President Jefferson Davis lived with his family in the early months of the Civil War. The museum, managed by the state's Department of Finance, said it hosts nearly 100,000 people a year, many of them school children, on field trips to see such things as the relic room where Davis slippers and pocket watch are preserved, near the gift shop. A framed article describes Davis as an American patriot who accomplished one of the most amazing feats in history by keeping the North at bay for 4 long years. Now, it's going to kind of dabble in some of the lunacy of the Confederacy and those Confederate sympathizers today. And so one of this, of course, is what makes the story kind of interesting is we see that through a lot of efforts of the daughters of the Confederacy, the sons of the Confederacies, they have just perpetuated just outright lies and falsehoods about the Confederacy. So let's continue on to read. Evelyn England, an African-American woman who worked for 12 years as a receptionist at the historic site, said some visitors, both black and white, were surprised to see her there. That's an understatement, right? A very understatement, because after all, this is the Confederacy. I'm in a unique position because whites don't really want me here, and blacks don't want to come here, England told the Associated Press. England, 62, retired this week from the $34,700 state job, and that's amazing right there, state job, and it wasn't the friendliest of departures. State records show she was suspended for 3 days last month for refusing to sign a performance review, and she said she filed a racial discrimination complaint with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, better known as the EEOC. A spokesman said the Department of Finance declined to comment on the personal matter. Now, we don't know all of the details, and I'm going to tell you, to be fair, there could be both this situation where there's both sides. In other words, I would be interested to know, when she said she refused to sign the performance review, why and what was their case. Now, the reason why I'm saying that, excuse me, you can't just automatically assume that her refusal to sign the performance review could have been because on racism alone. It could be that they did point out certain deficiency in her job performance. That's possible. I'm just being fair here. Do I really believe it? Not in the least. Because I have often had to fight bad performance review by people who were racist. But I do digress here. He says, after all those years working among the Davis family's furniture and belongings, England wishes that the museum would take a broader view of history. That slavery was the catalyst for the Civil War is sort of stated around. She said, now this is what I'm going to say. What did she expect? It's the Confederacy. Of course they're going to lie about it. They have been lying about the reasons for the Confederacy, the reasons why they fought a war, succeeded, and attempted to start an entire different nation. So when she says she wished that they would take a broader view, why would they? It's the Confederacy. Okay? She says, tell it like it is. Just tell it like it is. This happened. This is what is known to have happened. Give it as absolute truth as you can. Until that, you are painting a false narrative that was no gala. No, there were some ugly things that happened, she said. Well, what I want to say is, why did you work there? Now, it could be she needed a job. After all, it was a state job. State jobs are known to have good benefits, good health benefits, right? Okay, she might have needed the job. Again, we don't know because this article is not going into it. What I am going to say is, what did she expect from the Confederate point of view? And as I said, I'm more shocked that this is a state-funded institution. That is the bigger claim there. It says exploratory displays of the museum, where the first Confederate flag still flies outside, mostly discuss the furnishings and how rooms were used, and make little to no mention of slavery, which Davis promoted as a moral, a social political blessing. Now, of course, the fact that he was a Confederate president, a traitor to the United States, and of course the purpose for fighting slavery. Of course he's going to have this. All right, but it's good to know these thoughts still persist, and even in this day, they have an entire museum, okay, that is still perpetuating the lies funded by the United States government. It says the residency was salvaged over a century ago by the White House Association, a state-chartered women's organization that still owns its contents and remains involved, even as finance department employees staff the site. Now, notice he said the women's organization. Now, I don't know if this is the Daughters of the Confederacy, but there were many white women organizations that, again, that spread outright lies, that are even the effect of their efforts to perpetuate these lies still exist in public schools and books today. They want to talk about banning uh, critical race theory, and yet say absolutely nothing about the effects of these what this white women organizations. He says the legislature mandated in 1923 in a 1923 law that the state-owned building served as a reminder for all time of how pure and great were Southern statements of Southern valor. Okay? It would be better, England believes, if historic sites were managed by the Department of Archives and History. Now, again, here's what I'm saying. Of course, she's making a good argument. You're making the argument about why you're working at a Confederate museum. My biggest problem here is that this is a United States funded museum. Okay? The museum curator, Bob Wiseland, said Friday that he would ask the board to respond to questions about how the museum is run, but he doesn't think the museum depicts an overtly rosy view of Davis. Really? Okay. Jefferson Davis has never been called great in the House. Again, these are ploys, words that they want to play around with. All right. We just read where he said he was a man of valor. Is that he was the president of the Confederate States of America. By the way, well, the traitorous, you could say, nation. Not that it ever got off, but it was a traitorous nation designed to overthrow the legitimate United States government. He said, we would say no more, no less than that, Wiseland said. England, who would sometimes give tours, said guides only gave information such as the dates, February, May 1861, when Montgomery served as the Confederacy capital. The museum has made some changes over the years. She said there was once an area called the Shrine to Davis. The gift shop stopped selling Confederate flags, except for stickers of the design that was used when the Confederate capital was in Montgomery. They're taking steps. It might be baby steps, she said. I disagree. I don't know why you would have a state-funded Confederate museum, but okay, that's me. Is that England, who lives in Marion, meaning Alabama, said she's a distant cousin of Jimmy Lee Jackson, a civil rights activist shot and killed by a state trooper in 1965. His death helped inspire the voting rights march from Selma to Montgomery that led to passage of the Voting Rights Act. England was a young child at the time, but still recalls the commotion, and pain. Kind of makes her employment there even more puzzling. It says, in conversations with visitors, now this is interesting here. In conversations with visitors, England said she would sometimes use questions and humor to try to get them to see the different point of view. Okay, valiant try, but when one person maintained that secession was only about preserving states' right, a view that has long been taught to Southerners as the root cause of the Civil War, instead of slavery, she responded, but did everyone have the same rights? Excellent question here. I kind of like this. Excellent question. He says, you love the Confederacy for what you think it stood for, your rights, should we think. What rights, what were they fighting about? Some would say state rights. I have a problem with your solution of states' rights because all individuals in that state didn't have the same rights. Now, that's a mic drop, boom, bam moment right there. He says, one day, an older white man said, oh, the South will rise, to no one in particular as she browsed in the gift shop. When the merchandise, where the merchandise includes books, stickers of the first Confederate flag, and children's toys, including teddy bears, and Confederate and Union uniforms. When the woman turned around to put more items on the counter, England asked her, "What are you rising from?" Another great question. By the way, that sentiment right there, we could insert "Make America Great Again." Okay, I digress. In fact, January 6th, of course, is sort of our mini-me. Again, I'm poking fun here, but the similarities are interesting. She said the woman didn't reply. "If looks can kill, I'd be a dead woman," England said. "But many interactions have been positive," she said, recalling good conversations even with people who, a supervisor warned, could be prejudiced against her. "She's been chewed out by some African Americans for working there," she added. "It came at me from both sides," she says. Many visitors, black and white, found her race a point of curiosity. Of course they would. But I think, too, if you think about it, the greater wisdom prevailed to say, yeah, why did you work there? What did you expect? He says, "How do you work here?" One white woman asked her. "Ma'am, if you paid every last one of my bills, I'd quit today," she jokingly replied. And I think right there probably is the main reason why she worked there. She probably couldn't get a job. She says, "England hopes her presence helped open minds." That's a good point. Right there, that's a good point. Just open up what you're thinking. That's where the real change is going to occur in your heart. You can take down monuments, but if what they are still harboring is still there, at an inopportune time, it will resurface. January 6th, right? I'm doing a whole cough. January 6th, right? And that's true. Now, this last statement is very important, I think. I think right here when she says that, one, if a state job, in a sense, is a state job. Now, would I work there? Sure, I would at the state job. I work for the state that I live in. So, yeah, I would work there. But my point is, in her filing a racial discrimination suit, I'm asking the question, what did she expect? And I'm not even saying that whether she deserves to file one or not. I'm not saying her lawsuit is frivolous or not. I'm just, the question that I'm toying with is, because it's a fascinating story. I would say that her presence there certainly could open up. I think she asked some very pointed questions. I too can say that working in the trades that I work in, it was oftentimes met with a lot of racism and that I had to deal with. So I understand what she referred to, because oftentimes I did not respond, to racist statements, racist actions. Okay, and I'm not saying that she is wrong for filing her suits if we don't know all of the details to it. Would I file a suit now? Possible, yes. So again, as a fellow state worker, I clearly understand. As a fellow state worker who have oftentimes for the most of my career, and I'm the same age as her pretty much. I'm pretty much the same age. So for the 41 years of me being not a state worker, but in the trades, that I've oftentimes been the only black, I certainly understand where she's coming from. And so, the question that I asked, what did she think, was just a ploy, just a question there. But I think it's a fascinating story. And yes, I do think that there are some good points and bad points to it. I don't know what her expectations were, as far as that she thought that people might change. But as I said, I just reported this because this was such a fascinating story. All right, guys, look, that is my perspective. Love to hear your opinions, your views. And don't forget to add them to the comment section. And don't forget to like and subscribe this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. Till next time, I'll see you then.